Daf Yomi, Tractate, Bava, Batra, page 157a. Top of the page with the words Omer. I think we started a Mishnah on the bottom of 156b. No, I'm sorry, we started the Gemara. So let's start the Gemara again. The bottom of 156b, the Gemara says, Masnisan Mani. The Gemara asks, okay, now on the bottom of 156b. Okay, the Gemara asks, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yehuda, he, the Tanya, Rabbi Meir Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, B'chol Devar V'Yamin, B'pnei Shiyachol Lichtov Avalo B'Shabbos. The Gemara answers that this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. This is as it is taught in a Braita. Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer says, with regard to a person on his deathbed. It's kind of unusual. Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer says. Usually Rabbi Meir is just saying his own thing. So it's sort of unusual. Rabbi Meir says that Rabbi Eliezer says, with regard to a person on his deathbed who distributes his property by verbal instruction on a weekday, his statements stand. His statements stand because he can write. But his statement does not stand on Shabbat because he cannot write. I would think the opposite. I would think it stands only because he cannot write. Rabbi Yehoshua, I think Rabbi Yehoshua says the opposite. It's just different reasonings. We're on the top of 157a. Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, Rabbi Yehoshua says, B'chol Amru, B'chal V'chol Shabbos. Kiyotze bo Zachan L'gadol and Zachan L'katan Der Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, B'gadol Amru, B'chal V'chol L'katan. I think Rabbi Yehoshua is saying the exact opposite reasoning. With regard to weekdays, the sages said that the verbal instruction of a person as deathbed is valid, even though it's permitted to write. And for sure on Shabbat, when writing is prohibited, because, that was the reasoning. I didn't get it, now I get it. He was saying that the only way you can give an instruction is on Shabbat, is through verbal. So, you can't write. So it should be valid because of that. So if it's valid on a weekday, for surely on Shabbat when you can't write. Similarly, there's also an alternate reason to saying that if you can't write it, period, it's not good. So, there's two reasonings. Similarly, one can acquire property on behalf of an adult as he's able to effect acquisition for himself, but one cannot acquire property on behalf of a minor. This is the statement of Eliezer. Yehoshua says, the sages stated this halacha with regard to an adult, even though he can effect acquisition himself, one may infer a fortiori. This also applies with regard to a minor who cannot effect acquisition himself. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, B'Shabbos, Devrav Kayamin, B'fnei She'eno Yachol Lichtov, Avalo B'chol, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, B'Shabbos Amru, Kal B'chol B'chol, Kiyotze bo Zachan L'katan, Ve'in Zachan L'gadol, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer, L'katan Amru, Kal B'chol L'gadol. Rabbi Yehuda says that Rabbi Eliezer says on Shabbat. This is unusual. Usually Tanaim are not saying that other Tanaim say this. This is a very unusual Mishnah. I gotta remember this one. Wow. On Shabbat, the verbal statement of a person on his deathbed stands due to the fact that he cannot write. But a verbal instruction does not stand on a weekday. Rabbi Yehoshua says, with regard to Shabbat, the sages stated that as verbal instruction stands, even though writing is prohibited. One may infer an a fortiori that the same applies with regards to a weekday when writing is permitted. Similarly, one can acquire property on behalf of a minor, but one cannot acquire property on behalf of an adult since he can effect the acquisition himself. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yehoshua says, the sages stated this halacha with regard to a minor, and one may infer a fortiori that this applies with regard to an adult. And that's the end of that. Okay, new Mishnah. Nafal abayis olav vel aviv. New Mishnah. Okay, nafal abayis olav vel aviv. O olav vel morishav. V'haita alav ketuvat isha uval choiv. Yehoshua v'omrim haben meis rishon v'achar kach meis ha'av. V'alei choiv omrim ha'av meis rishon v'achar kach meis haben. A house collapsed on a son and upon his father. Nebuch. Wow. Or upon a certain person and upon those from whom he stands to inherit. And it is known who died first. If the son bore the responsibility to pay the marriage contract of his wife, to pay a creditor, and the son had no money with which to pay them except that which he might inherit from his father, the father's heirs say, the son died first, and afterward the father died. And therefore the son did not inherit property from his father. And the creditors say, the father died first, and afterward the son died, resulting in the son's inheriting his father's property, enabling the creditors to collect payment from the property even after the son's death. There is a dispute with regard to how to rule. Bei Shammai oimrim yachaloiku ubei Hillel oimrim nechosim bechazkosom. Since it cannot be determined who died first, Bei Shammai say, they divide the property between them, so that the father's heirs receive half of his property, and the son's creditors receive the other half. And Beit Hillel say, the property retains its own previous ownership status. Since the last known owner of the property was the father, the property is given to the father's heirs. That's the Mishnah. The Talmud says, what does the Talmud say? Was sagt the Talmud Ganze? Where is the Talmud? Okay. Tanan Hasam Hamal the. Excuse me a second, get some water. Mr. Wasser. Wet the vocal cords. Shalom. Shalom Chadash. Ilay lalay simanti. Mbahana dut. Mbahana dut ila mishkina teha. You like that? Bershus. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nifeh. Nothing like some good Mayim Chaim. You like Mayim Chaim? Tanan Hasam and Malach Chaviv B'Shtal Goy Ben Achazim Shabbat Mal Yidei Eidim Goy Ben Achaz Men Echolim. The Gemara says, we learned in the Mishnah elsewhere, 175a, one who lends money to another with a promissory note can collect the debt even from lien property that's been sold. If one lends money only with witnesses, he can collect the debt only from unsold property. Boy Shmuel diktani dukani ma'u Ali b'rachmei Adam maknet davar shelo bo'olam Adam maknet davar shelo bo'olam. Rabbi Meir says that yes, a person can sell something that has not yet come to the world. That's the Gleis of Chadash, 956. Lo tiboylach tevadikane elaki tiboylach elib darabon yamar einan maknet davar shelo bo'olam. 956 verses 10:17. Shmuel raises a dilemma. It's Colette versus Elsa. Shmuel raises a dilemma. If the borrower wrote in a promissory note, the property that I will require in the future shall be lien to this debt, and he subsequently acquired property, what is the halacha? Is the property liened or not? The Gemara clarifies the dilemma. According to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says a person can transfer ownership of an entity that has not yet come into the world, you should not raise the dilemma as the lender certainly acquires. Places a lien on the property. Rather, when should you raise the dilemma? Raise it according to the opinion of the rabbis, who say a person cannot transfer ownership of an entity that has not yet come into the world. Amav Yosef. Hoshima v'chomayim zeh hayapikech shemachas akarka b'nei shehu yochol limishkan oyalov. Rabbi Yosef said, come and hear proof from the Mishnah. Ketubot 110a. If one produces a promissory note against another, and the borrower produced a bill of sale dated after the promissory note that states that the lender sold him a field of his, Admon says that the borrower can say, were I really indebted to you, you should have collected the loan when you sold me the field. And the rabbis say this does not prove anything. It is possible that this lender was perspicacious, whatever that means. What does it mean? I'm guessing it means like hasty. Having ready insight. Perspicacious means smart. If he was, wise. As he sold the borrower the land for a good reason, because now he can take a field perspicacious. Perspicacious or perspicacious? Either one. Perspicacious equals what? What does it equal? Perspicacious 154. Okay. That came up recently. As he sold the borrower the land for a good reason, because now he can, in effect, fields collateral from him in lieu of the outstanding loan. This Mishnah indicates that even property acquired by the borrower after the promissory note is liened. Amar le erave mine kama mine afilu miklima de al katfe ki komi boyalan de kane machar di kane v'hoyer shmai. Rose said to of Yosef, do you speak of a case where the debt is collected from the debtor with regard to collecting the debt from him? The debt is collected from any property currently in his possession, even from the cloak that is upon his shoulders. When the dilemma is raised to us, it was with regard to a case where the borrower wrote, the property that I will acquire shall be liened, and he subsequently acquired property and sold it to others. The dilemma also pertains to a case where the borrower wrote, the property that I will acquire shall be liened, and he subsequently acquired property and bequeathed it to his heirs. In these cases, what is the halacha? Can the lender repossess the property from the buyer or heir? Rav Chana Tashima Nafal Bayas Alav El Aviv Alav Val Moirishav Yehoshua Alav Kisuas Isha Ubal Choiv Av Oimrim Yoshia Av Oimrim Haben Meis Rishon V'achakach Meis Av Ubal Choivis Oimrim Av Meis Rishon. Rav Chana said, come and hear proof from the Mishnah in a case where the house collapsed on a son and on his father, or upon a certain person and upon those from whom he stands to inherit. And it is unknown who died first. The halacha depends on the circumstances. If the son bore the responsibility to pay the marriage contract of his wife and to pay a creditor, and the son had no money with which to pay them, except that which he might inherit from his father, and the father's heirs say, the son died first, and afterward the father died, and therefore the son did not inherit property from his father, and the creditors say, the father died first, and afterward the son died, there is a dispute with regard to how to rule. In this case, the creditors claim that the son inherited his father's property, and therefore they have a lien upon the property. The Gemara explains, and if it enters your mind to say that when the borrower writes the property that I will acquire shall be liened, and he acquires property and sells it to others, it is not liened, and that when he writes the property that I will acquire shall be liened, and he acquires property and bequeaths it to his heirs, it is not liened, then the mission is difficult. Although the father indeed died first, this case is comparable to one where the borrower writes, the property that I will acquire shall be liened, as the son acquired the property after receiving the loan. This indicates that a lien can be placed upon property that one will acquire in the future. Amar lahu Rav Nachman d'ira chavrin targime mitzvah hisoimim b'froya choy v'asavihin. Maskif lo Rav Ashi milve al pehu v'Rav Shmuel d'Amri tarvayim milve al peh enu goyve lo min yorshin v'lo min l'koiches. Rav Nachman said to the sages, Rav Zera, our colleague, interpreted the Mishnah as follows. In this case, the creditors do not claim the property because it is liened. Rather, they claim it because it is a mitzvah incumbent upon the orphans to repay their father's debt. Rav Ashi objects to this. If the promissory note does not place a lien on the property, this is considered a loan by oral agreement, and Rav and Shmuel both say a loan by oral agreement cannot be collected, neither from the heirs nor from the buyers.